This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from LiLLiPub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelcastans. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelcastans have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Book.
Let's do it again.
All right.
Episode 91, Co-authorship in Action.
Hello, and welcome to the Zettelcast. This is episode 91, and we are going to explore this time some interactions between our characters. You know, we've been working for quite some time now, well over a year. We're 91. We're getting close to our 2-year mark, where we've been writing a novel together with our Zettelcastans, Zeke, and everyone with their Zettelcastans. That's another story. So what we're going to do today is, as we've been writing, we're getting to the point where our characters are beginning to interact. And so we've created some stories now where we've specifically interacted the characters. Last time, for episode 90, Deb led us in some great tools for summarizing, to build our summarizing skills. And we practiced them by choosing a story that's already out there in the Roanoke area, where you can see it as a Roanoke member. And we each picked someone else's story to summarize. And now this week, we're going to take a character from that story and have one of our characters interact with that character. And we're going to see what the stories look like and how the story's shaping up as we draw closer together. Who would like to start us off?
I'll go. So last week, I summarized one of Kathleen's stories involving Teresita. So that meant that I needed to have Teresita in a scene, and she is, although there's only interaction towards the end because I wasn't entirely sure how we're going to go with that, but I got it set up anyway. So this is Javi again. Javi sat at a table in the Henge cafeteria, absent-mindedly munching on fried potatoes as he stared at the map he had made of the Henge sub-basements. The most striking thing about the map was nothing. Every room below the main archives was empty, except for the room he had discovered with the old note cards. Hello, Javi, new project? Helen walked closer and looked down at the map spread out on the table. There was a young woman behind her, staring across the room in a different direction. Javi could not tell if they were together. He laughed nervously. More of an old one, actually. He pointed to one room marked with a red X. This is the room that had those cards you were working on. His hand swept over the rest of the map. I've explored all of the other rooms down there, and they're all empty. That's odd. It is, but it's not the strangest thing. I only found that room in the first place because I was organizing the accession records that are stored on the link. There was one record that was miscategorized as a system file, and that was the record of the things stored in that room. Helen started to speak, but Javi cut her off. Hold on. It gets even weirder. I've looked all through the system, and I can't find that file again. It's just gone. He slumped lower in his seat. Helen appeared to be thinking through the implications. So that's kind of like how some of the writing from the cards disappeared from the link versions after I scanned them in. Except this record was already on the link when you discovered it, and now it's gone. Is that right? Yes. I thought maybe it was just because I wasn't very good at using the link, but nobody else can find it either. Rosemary knows. Javi hadn't noticed the young woman approach, but now she was next to Helen and looking intently at him. Rosemary knows, she repeated. And the plot thickens.
It does. Teresita is becoming cornstarch.
The thing that holds everything together?
The thing that thickens.
The thickens.
Yes. Or arrowroot.
Very good. Oh, very good.
No, Teresita is becoming quite popular. I wrote on her too.
Oh,
Yeah. So this piece is called Under the Stairs. The children were her charge now, day by day, and Helen filled the quieter hours with talk, letting old memories wander where they may, like seeds she scattered on a well-worn walk. She never seemed to notice how the room adjusted to specific names and years, how certain recollections changed the tune of glances, pauses, shifts that no one steers. Most people learn to treat such things as weather, background conditions scarcely worth a glance. One child alone kept fitting them together, patiently tracing out an unseen dance. Then Sarah crossed the stacks and changed her pace. The child was watching not the tale, but the trace. Sarah Chin still took notes, but what had changed was not her commitment to observation, but how she practiced it. In her early years on Lydia, she carried notebooks openly, like a field scientist displaying proof of seriousness. She believed anything not written down at once risked being lost, distorted, or softened by memory. Over time, however, she learned that the notebook was not neutral. People noticed it. Some grew guarded, others became performative. More importantly, it split her attention between experience and documentation. Lydia, meanwhile, seemed to reward participation over record keeping. Eventually, she adapted, learning to remain fully present and store observations in carefully arranged rooms of memory until she could record them later in private. She developed a disciplined routine. During an encounter, she observed as completely as possible. Later, usually at day's end, she transferred those observations into a structured internal landscape. Questions occupied one region, contradictions another. Particularly interesting individuals garnered rooms of their own. Only then did she commit selected portions to written notes. The method required more effort than carrying a notebook, but it also demanded greater presence. One of the newer rooms belonged to a child named Teresita. Sarah had been watching her for months. Most adults regarded the girl as withdrawn, perhaps delayed, perhaps destined to remain inaccessible to those around her. Sarah was unconvinced. There was something distinctive about Teresita's attention. The child seemed less interested in events than in the relationships between them. While others watched people, Teresita watched patterns. While others listened to stories, she seemed to listen for the structure beneath them. That quality made Sarah slow her pace when she entered the library that afternoon. Helen sat on a cushion near the staircase, settled comfortably into the role she had assumed months earlier as caretaker of the younger children. The arrangement had surprised many people, perhaps even Helen herself, but Sarah thought it suited her. Helen possessed an easy patience children trusted. She neither hovered nor ignored. She simply shared space with a quiet generosity that made others feel comfortable and welcome. Teresita sat in her usual place underneath the stairs. An open book rested on her lap, though Sarah quickly noticed the child was paying more attention to the room than to the page. Sarah had long concluded that Helen thought aloud much as other people took breath. Memories entered her conversation naturally and without ceremony. They arrived as observations, anecdotes, comparisons, and recollections that seemed to occur to her in the moment. Helen rarely distinguished between memories of little consequence and those that might matter greatly to somebody else. To her, they were simply pieces of a life she had lived. That afternoon, she was describing one of the early winters. The details were almost beside the point. Sarah had heard similar stories before. What caught her attention was not Helen's recollection, but the response it produced around the room. A shelving assistant glanced up and then returned to work with unusual focus. A visitor entered the library, altered course after recognizing Helen. Later, when another memory surfaced, two adults near a reading table redirected their conversation with the effortless coordination of people following a familiar but unspoken pattern. None of the reactions were dramatic. Their subtlety made them easy to overlook. No one challenged Helen, corrected her, or even seemed upset. The adjustments occurred just below conscious attention, woven so thoroughly into ordinary social behavior that most people were no longer aware of making them. They were not avoiding embarrassment. They were guarding something, though few of them could have said what. Teresita, however, could, though not yet with words. The book in her lap had become incidental. Her attention moved repeatedly between Helen and the room, as though comparing two related phenomena. Each time Helen drifted into a particular category of memory, the child watched the surrounding adults more closely. That distinction drew Sarah closer. When Helen noticed the child's attention and asked what was wrong, Teresita responded by pointing first to one adult, then another, then at Helen. The sequence repeated, suggesting she was trying to communicate not an object, but a relationship. Teresita appeared to be thinking in terms of patterns. Helen didn't quite understand what Teresita was trying to convey, but as Helen watched, she became increasingly convinced that the child had stumbled onto something important. Not because Teresita understood what she was saying, Sarah doubted she did. No, the significance lay elsewhere. Teresita had noticed a recurring structure in the behavior of the adults around her. She had recognized that certain remarks from Helen reliably produced certain responses, and she had become curious enough to study the phenomena rather than ignore it. Most residents of Lydia eventually learned to navigate particular conversational hazards without much conscious thought. They redirected here, changed the subject there, chose a different path elsewhere. The underlying structure disappeared into habit. Teresita had not yet learned to stop seeing it. The realization settled over Sarah gradually. Whatever explanation might eventually emerge, Teresita had arrived at the mystery honestly, through observation alone. She had watched long enough to recognize that a hidden system existed. Now she was trying, with the limited tools available to her, to point at it and ask whether anyone else could see it too. And when a word finally emerged, it was not eloquent. Different. Helen laughed softly and assumed the comment referred to her. Sarah suspected otherwise. The adults had been quietly navigating verbal tripwires most no longer consciously noticed, reflexively avoiding paths that might deprive someone of a discovery that belonged to them. Teresita knew none of this, or at least not yet. What she knew was simpler and in its own way more remarkable. She had observed that Helen said certain kinds of things, and that the room reliably shifted around them, revealing an unseen framework beneath ordinary conversation. The mystery occupying Sarah's attention was not what Teresita meant by different, It was how long the child had been patiently watching a hidden pattern that nearly everyone else had trained themselves not to see. For now, she would say nothing. Some discoveries belonged to the person who made them, and this one, whatever it became, belonged to the child beneath the stairs.
Wow.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh.
I'm just going to take my pencils and go home. Nice.
Well, we seem to be on the pattern of reading first and discussing second. So I'm sitting on my mouth to avoid jumping in, but let's deal with it as a group after everyone has had a chance to read.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll go next. I'm going to give just a few little things just to make sure that people understand some of the words I'm going to use in this story, which is not very long. In episode 90, just last week, I read a story by Mel called Javi Meets the Henge. And in that, he encounters a girl who seemingly fails to give him clear instructions about how to get to the henge. But he figures out what she might have meant and obviously arrives. And the phrase that she uses that he's able to kind of decode is, it's a cross and a scurry. So I'm just going to be using that again, so now you'll know where that comes from. Number 2 reference. 52 episodes ago, in episode 39, Deb shared a story that was called The Dream. And it features 2 girls who are in the henge, and they love each other very much. And they also have a group, a project they're working on together. It's a capstone project for anthropology. And one of those girls is named Claire. And finally, number 3, I'm going to be using the phrase right at the very beginning called Turing completionist. And this hasn't been in an episode, but subscribers would have the option to read this. It happens in the scene where Javi first meets Jenna in the gift shop of the henge, and he talks about having been in the arcade and he was playing Turing completionist. And she asks, wow, that sounds cool. This arcade sounds cool. How do I get there? And he actually doesn't know, because he always gets there from the archives rather than through the front door. All right, so there's all of that. And here we go. This is The Henge Meets Javi. Javi, deep into Turing completionist, probabilities sinking like stones in the sea, made a last-ditch move. Combatants executed. His hero moved in to land a terrific blow, but the boss had just that much more in reserve. Rub out. He widened focus to include the little alcove of the arcade where he stood, and nearly jumped out of his skin. A young girl was standing right at his elbow. She giggled. I'm sorry, I really didn't want to startle you. I know this girl, Javi thought. Well, no, I remember her. Javi said, settling down again. It's fine. I was just way into this. I could tell, she said. It's why I came over. Not sure how to take that, he just let it sit. You were having fun, she said. Fun is good to be around. She leaned in slightly, wiggling her eyebrows. Sometimes it's catching. Javi said, You're speaking in complete sentences. I wasn't sure you could. Oh, you remember me, she said. I do. You're the first person I talked to in LC, Javi said. Serial positioning effect. Ah, and now I'm current last, maybe the last. You never know. Javi frowned. What? You've gone back to cross and scurry. Oh, come on, she said. You don't really need me to explain your own joke, do you? I don't think it'll stand up to a retell. He let it drop. Fine. We both know why I remember you. Why do you remember me? She said, You're the first stranger on the street to go audible only with me. First, last, and only. Javi let that sink in. Well, when you put it that way, makes us even Steven, she said, offering a fist bump. Or whatever your name is. She raised her index finger up to eye height and dove it back down to the name embroidered on her green t-shirt. Claire. Javi. Claire said, I've never seen TC players go quite so deep. How'd you learn to play it like you do? Javi said, I learned the board game. His face turned partly cloudy. A special person back home taught me. The board game? I'll have to check it out, she said. Does playing the game remind you of them? Javi nodded. And myself. Her head did a bright little swizzle up. Good thing it's here then, right? Yes, he nodded slowly. Well, I'll leave you be. Hope to keep seeing you around, Javi. She made a start to leave, but his eyes were drawn from the name on her shirt to the large slogan printed on it. Help wanted? Please allow me. He said, Wait, Claire, could you tell me how to get here from the rotunda? She did a double take. Cross and scurry, Javi. Did you drop here from the sky? I climbed up from the archives. Oh, you work there. So does my dad. You know Oliver? Mr. Weir? Oh, I bet he loves to hear you call him that, she laughed. Yes. So to get here from the rotunda, you can just use basic move with strategy and stances X. Javi did not pretend to understand. Okay. We're hunting for serial position 1 here. Bear with me. Do you know the basic move? No. Okay. This is my lucky day. She bounced on her toes. You know what? Our first serial position 1 was my lucky day. If you'd understood me when we met, you'd have had a link guide escort you here and explain the rotunda on the way. Javi ran it all back, head waggling. That's what you were trying to do? Yes, and now I can't just give it to you because we're inside. She looked up at the ceiling. Points to you, gods! She was so far ahead of Javi that he just waited for her to circle back. She said, Of course I can go out with you and do that, and I will, but I hope you'll let me walk you through it myself first. How could Javi refuse? He couldn't, that's how. They started to leave together, and as they crossed the arcade's main threshold, she said, So I'm about to teach you something you don't know about Henge navigation. Right. How about we do a little pretest to see what you do know, so you can fit it in, hey? Yes, good idea, Javi said, by this point not sure that he knew much of anything at all. Claire said, Right. We're going to the rotunda. How do you want to get there from here? Javi said, Well, I only know to go out an emergency exit and walk around. And that will definitely work, she said. Is that how you'd like to go? No, he said. I'd like to learn another way. Superb. Okay. She veered over to a kiosk under a big, cheerful, Way to go sign. I think you might like this. It may even be Turing complete.
My goodness, my goodness. Oh, that's spectacular.
Subscribers will be able to see what happens at the kiosk.
Ooh. Ooh, tease. Okay, since I'm last, that means it's up to you, Victoria.
I can go. Okay, so I initially chose the same piece that you did, and then didn't make the episode because my internet was down. So when I saw that you had posted on it, I thought, I don't want to do the same thing. So I went back through, and instead I chose Deb's piece, Kelly Newberg's Mercurial Gathering from April. And I decided it fit better even than the idea that I'd had, because in that segment, Kelly goes to the Henge and she meets Angie and has a rather profound interaction with her, and then goes home and kind of processes what's happened. And that piece ends with Kelly saying, tomorrow I need to go find Angie to kind of figure out what's happened. So my piece picks up with the presumption that Kelly is on her way back to see Angie. So this is between Margaret and Kelly. The morning light painted everything in shades of pink and gray. Margaret asked to sit outside after breakfast and had settled into a cozy to watch the birds. A cozy, as opposed to a crunchy, was a lush bamboo recliner stuffed with fat blue pillows and a blue and white throw, way better than the crunchy folding chairs that pinched her back. She closed her eyes and took in a long draw of fresh air. It calmed the chatter and, she hoped, would keep the visitations at bay. The last one had left her with the Moody's for several days. She had been with Hope then. It dipped and flitted around her, presenting as a black and orange butterfly, but stayed out of reach. Why do you visit if you won't sit down? Hope flapped a playful wing 3 times and disappeared out the window. All hope was lost. Margaret curled into her bed and went to sleep. But today was not for visitations. It was for fresh air and coffee and solitude. Hey! Margaret startled and opened her eyes but said nothing. It was always better to not speak to them until you could calculate exactly what they were there for. Some to taunt, some to shame, some simply to watch. Especially true of ones like this, looking so real. Hey! Hi! I think I took a wrong turn. I'm looking for Angie. Margaret blinked. You know, the Henge angel? Margaret began her ladder. I'm Margaret. I'm home. Yeah? Kelly sat down and tilted her head slightly, beaming curiosity and kindness. Sounds like you could use an angel, too. And that's where I left them.
Mhm.
So my thought was, this could be an interstitial piece so that another chapter or segment follows, and then we pick up when they actually start talking. So that's that.
Oh.
All right. Oh, this is going to make a really interesting interaction discussion. But so my piece is also interstitial, to use Victoria's grown-up term. She's our experienced literary expert.
And embroidery expert.
Yeah. So all of the pieces that I write are intended to just be little filler spots that, that just wink in and wink out. So mine began from last week, where on the last week's episode, I had chosen Tickled, which you'll see in the Roanoke for subscribers area by Julianne Scherer. And it was a cute story that about the path that had been created by the Bezier belt by traveling down the hill with the Bezier belt. And in Tickled, Todd and actually Sean as well were bouncing around, going, keeping the lights going on the path as they were gradually flitting out. So they were having a great time visiting and communicating with one another and keeping the lights going. So Todd is the character that I had chosen. And this piece that I'm writing, including here, came about right after the second episode at the Henge, where Teresita had, let me get back here. Teresita had a second episode at the Henge where she gave her completed Bezier belt to Jenna. And
At
then
the
she
Henge or at the build-up?
excuse me.
There you go.
Back up. At the build. This had occurred at the second build-up, where Teresita had completed a Bezier belt and had passed it on to Jenna with a very limited interaction. And then had, as soon as she realized that everybody was looking at Jenna and the belt, she kind of scurried back to the tree. Her sister said, "What's this with my sister? Why was she involved?" And comes to find out, "Did you make that belt?" And Teresita goes, "No, because it's the Bast that makes the belt." And so she says, "Okay, no, that wasn't her," and runs back. But it actually was her. And she collects more Bast. And when she gets back home to try to start a new Bezier belt, she finds that there's a dramatic difference between watching the episode of Bala making the belt, which is all she has access to right now, versus being under the tree Jinx, where Bala was communicating with her and helping her make the Bezier belt. So she had a profound experience of loneliness, realizing that there's something different there that she doesn't have access to now, but she can't name it. So now this episode picks up from there. Okay, this one is called The Bast Makes the Belt. By morning, loneliness had given way to curiosity for Teresita. She could say something now that she did not see before. Sometimes two people talk. One person says something, the other person says something. The first person says something, one then the other. Bala near Jinx said something, and then Teresita said something. At home, Bala said something, then Bala said something else. You could make Bala say the same thing again, but you couldn't make him. It couldn't be that Bala said something, then Teresita said something. She wanted Bala to. She wanted Bala to not say something. She wanted Bala to hear. Oh, near Jinx, Bala says something. I hear. I say something. Bala hears. It is not like this at home. It is not like this with Rosa. It is not like this at school. It is not like this with Helen. How can it be like this? It is good when I hear and I say something and the other person hears and says something. Teresita kept this in mind as she dressed for school. As Rosa drove her there, as she was in her class, it was always the same. Rosa said something, then Rosa said something. The teacher said something, then the teacher said something else. But she also watched, and she began to see certain things. At the morning break, Teresita sat on a bench near other children. She felt very exposed, but it only added to her excitement and her feeling of adventure. A boy stood near a girl. He waved his arms and pointed, and they laughed. Then the girl moved her hands and shrugged her shoulders, and they both laughed. Then the boy jumped up and down and gestured something. Then the girl noticed Teresita staring at them. The boy came over to her and gestured. Then he looked at her without moving. Teresita didn't understand. He looked confused. Then he did a little start. He tapped her gently on the shoulder and pointed to his throat. Teresita knew what that meant. She had to say yes in her head. It was like when the teacher wanted to talk to just her. So she said yes in her head. The boy looked at her again and made the same gesture, but this time she could hear him in her head. Teresita, I'm Todd. She heard him. She was so excited. Yes, she spoke. I'm Todd. He tried again. Yes, she spoke again. Todd seemed to be lost in thought for a moment. Then he spoke again. Didn't I see you at the build-up? He asked her in their thou. No. Teresita bowed slowly back to him. Jinx made it so that no one could see me. Oh, but I was on the hill. I saw you. I saw you. You jumped. You made the lights go on. Jinx made it so no one could see me. Todd paused again. Then he shook his head and said, What were you doing with that long grass? Grass? Bast. You had a big ball of bast, the tall grass that grows by the stream. Bast, yes. What were you doing with the bast? The bast can make a belt. Bala showed me. He said I could hold the bast and see. One strand over, another strand around. The bast can make a belt. The bast made a belt. And that's where it's.
Yeah, interstitial, just little bitty things.
Okay. Well, now for our roundup. And we did the roundup this way a little bit because of the potential of a hard stop, and we didn't want anyone to not get their story read. So now here we are and ready to do the second round, which is where we get to react to the stories that were read here. Who wants to start us off with the reaction round?
It's so much. Who summarized it all first? Maybe each author could in fact summarize their story. Just a few little things, just a hint. Doesn't need to be, the most beautiful summary ever. But why don't we go with Mel first, since he read first?
Okay. Javi and Helen discuss a mystery that Javi has discovered, and Teresita chimes in with she thinks she has the solution and they don't understand it.
Right. So I wonder how sensitive Javi might be. We've already established it in another story to become that Helen has got her clueless hat on. But well, Javi doesn't know who Teresita is. He's got no preconceptions of her. So he's not necessarily, I'm just thinking, how inclined would Javi be to discount what she said?
Initially, not at all, because he doesn't know her.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely certain how Helen's going to react. If Helen has heard of Rosemary before or not. I mean, I don't know if Helen's going to say, oh, that's an imaginary friend that she has on the link, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Or if she's going to try and explain it away. So yeah, we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, but being Helen's primary viewpoint, she probably would say something like that. Oh, she makes up imaginary friends. She's got another one called Bala, and she thinks she talks to them on the link, and she's well,
Yeah.
you know.
Different.
But I think Javi would be inclined to try and find out what Rosemary knows, whether Rosemary's real or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And knowing his reaction with Helen, he has the experience of knowing that Helen trivializes everything as well. She was ready to trivialize the differences between the cards. So he knows also to think past her readiness to just close the box, put the lid back on the box and set it aside. I'm thinking he might ask Teresita, who's Rosemary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful beginning. I think, I mean, just as a fan reaction, me being a fan, I think all of these stories really just they just um they let something unfold.
Yeah. Yeah. I see a magic beginning to happen with the interactions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have never regretted any of these interaction assignments at all. They're very stimulating.
Well, Deb, you're kind of the queen of summaries. How would you summarize your piece?
You go, girl.
Well, I'll just use the closing line of the little sonnet that I wrote. Then Sarah crossed the stacks, changed her pace. The child was watching not the tail, but the trace.
Yeah.
Okay, because she had been watching Teresita for a while because she wasn't convinced that she was a displaced person, so to speak. You know, she there was something about the way she tilted her head when she was watching, you know, something about her level of attentiveness that belied the idea of her being more absent than present, you know. So she was putting together a little theory in her head, in her special Teresita chamber, her special Teresita room, memory room that she had.
Yeah.
Thinking in terms of the fact that this child was noticing stuff. This child was noticing patterns because, and how could she tell that she was noticing patterns? Because the child echoed certain samenesses when she was noticing patterns. And Sarah was a noticer of patterns.
Yes.
So,
And not an outsider, right? And the outsider perspectives are shaping up to be like everything.
yeah, little searchlights, you know,
Yeah.
just point out things that other people have, I don't know, for lack of knowing exactly why they're doing what they're doing, they're sweeping stuff under the rug, so to speak. Not realizing that they've been led to do this, you know. So
Yeah.
that's my, I don't know about Queen of Summaries, but that's my summary of because I would love to claim that title. That's a wonderful place to be able to hear something and then, you know, summarize it pretty quickly. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I don't know. Teresita, you Kathleen were talking about Teresita being a kind of a fill-in character. I'm not so sure of that. You know, I'm I'm not so sure of that. I think she's going to, I mean, my speculation purely, but I'm thinking that she's going to mature into something significant.
Oh.
Yeah, I think so. Because she's the one, again, a kind of an insider outsider position that she's in.
Yeah.
Because she hasn't been culturalized like everybody else.
Yeah.
They let. Go ahead.
I could make a comment, but it would be a spoiler, so I can't. But yeah, I think she does have she's uniquely positioned, and you have written that beautifully into the story. And when the spoiler comes out, it'll make perfect sense, and you've just set it up perfectly.
Oh,
Yeah.
3 days. Okay.
I loved the choice of the word different.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, because churning around in her so-called nonverbal head, you know, she's looking because she's a reader. Just because you're not verbal doesn't mean you can't read and understand perfectly well what you're reading. So she has all these concepts in her mind, these things in her head, but to get it out is another story. And so different,
Yeah.
you know.
And it beautifully works with Kathleen's portrayal of Teresita trying to not getting it, but coming up with the concept, something to convey the concept of being listened to.
Mm. Mm. Right. You can see her struggle. You can see it, feel her struggle in your heart. So it's I'm very excited about what we're doing, y'all. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is going to link back to Rosemary, because through this her gradual understanding of conversation and being listened to, she just has all of a sudden stopped blurbling every thought into the link. And that's what had caused everybody to just put her on permanent lockout on their link. But there's somebody who's going to notice it, and that's Rosemary.
Yeah.
And already did, actually.
Yeah.
However many episodes ago that was.
That's right. That one's already been set up. Okay. Julianne, are you prepared to summarize?
Yeah, sure. I'll summarize mine. It is a sequel to Javi getting enigmatic directions to get to the henge. And he meets up with the same person who gave those directions in the henge. And it turns out, even though she's a kid, she's a volunteer in the henge. And people who have been paying attention will also know that Angie Weir is her sister. So she, like Angie, is kind of born and raised in this henge place. And
Henge angel.
she's a henge angel, and she's very excited about the opportunity to help Javi learn his way around.
Yeah. And I love the piece is sometimes it's very enigmatic, and then sometimes she goes totally enigmatic. And sometimes it's accessible to the reader, and sometimes it isn't. So you have the opportunity to discovering what she's saying. So the reader can feel from both her side where she's saying something that is known and the other person isn't understanding it, and being on Javi's side where you're hearing something that doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah. And what I wanted to have happen in this is that, you know, we've got plenty of Javi being socially awkward. Okay, he's socially awkward. And I wanted this to be, well, here's this unthreatening child. And she's got something that he could use. So yeah, I see that she's going to be able to kind of kick off a little bit more of the experience in the Henge that he came hoping for. She'll certainly play a part in that, you know, because the Henge navigation is darned powerful.
Although presumably the archives don't operate by the same rules because he manages to get around those all right.
Yeah. And maybe, well, you know, one can think about, well, I'm doing this job, and so you have a different level of permission to ask for help when you're new to a job, maybe,
Mhm.
than when you're in this place where everybody seems to just stuff that you don't know. Well, okay, our Zoom recording is being very interesting. So Kathleen, I'd be curious if you remember, and it's okay if you don't, if anything sticks out for you, what it was that Claire said that was enigmatic to you, because it is, in fact, possible to understand everything that she said.
Oh, yes. But for me, frequently find with your writing that the first pass through, there's a lot I don't understand, and then it takes 2 or 3 readings, but I can almost always get to understand pretty much all of it by the 3rd reading. Now, sometimes what I have to do is I have to specifically bring my senses into it, and I'm thinking about the roundabout, the interchange between Jenna's experience versus Sunny's on the bicycle versus Sunny's experience on the skateboard.
Yeah.
And I had to be in the scene enough to be Jenna, then be Sunny, to be able to get it fully. So to me, your writing is always very challenging. But upon the first read, which is what we just had, listening to you read it, there was that mix.
Okay.
Yeah, and I won't be able to identify it without going back to the words, which would already make it the second read.
Yeah, so this is not really full of the sort of poetic, sensual detail. It's more like that I'm dropping some terms on you.
I do.
So,
Take this.
yeah. Oh, okay. So, for example, serial positioning effect. Does anybody else? I think that there may be a couple of people who know what that is.
Who know the proper definition of
what it means?
I just have the inferred definition of some kind of game. That's all I have of that.
So it's a phenomenon that's often discussed in memory art about the fact that when you learn a list of things, it's highly likely that you'll remember the first thing and the last thing much better on your own.
The recency.
It's the serial positioning effect, the first and the last. And so Anthony Metivier has some strategies for mixing it up so that everything basically gets a chance to be first and everything gets a chance to be last. And you remove that bias. And so I wanted it to be the fact that, this is in the future and there are going to be plenty of people who know that. And this becomes common ground for Claire and Javi. He uses the phrase, and then she tries to riff with him, and he's like not ready to riff. So that was one. And then I'll just say the term Turing completionist is a portmanteau. It's my idea of a game that combines the notion of being Turing complete and the phenomenon in gameplay where there are certain people who are called completionists who set out to win from every possible angle. Every mission, every handicap, every side quest to kill it. And those are completionists. But hopefully, you don't actually need to have looked at any of that up to get the flavor of, okay, this little kid seems to have opened Javi up a little bit. And she's going to be able to help him figure out how to use the Henge navigation.
Oh, very good.
I really enjoyed the phrase that went something along the lines of, she was so far ahead that he just waited for her to circle back.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Yep. And that's
Well,
what I
and
was
the
trying
cool
to
thing
convey
about when you do that, like if you're using specific terminologies in the context of the way that you write with it, it doesn't matter, because the overall effect is, as a reader, we understand where it's headed and we can kind of make inferences and figure things out. So even if it's completely made up, it sounds totally plausible, but knowing that it's probably real just adds another layer of cool. So like it works either way, which is really deft.
Nerdy fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Julianne, what got an echo? I don't know.
Not now.
Okay. Back to the positioning. That was Buzan, Tony Buzan, who came up with mind mapping, or at least he brought it to the fore for the population. And he said he called that recency, but that was the thing that came first, I think. Is recency and something else, cincy, for the beginning and the end. And Anthony Mativier talks about that, and I'm blocking on that other extreme. Do you remember possibly?
I thought it was recency bias, but I'm not sure.
Recency? No, it was recency and something CC. Something.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just look it up when we finish. Okay.
Well, are we ready for your summary, Victoria?
So we've established that Margaret has self-selected a kind of solitude, if you will, and she's grappling with how to parse what's happened and how she feels about it and coming to terms with those things and herself. And as I was kind of cataloging what has been written, that's what brought me to the piece with Kelly, because in having Margaret being somewhere Henge adjacent and having Kelly having already stated that she needed to return there, it just made sense to stick them in a position where they would cross paths. So that was the catalyst. But as I started thinking about Kelly's positioning, she has a kindness about her. She's very introspective and kind of self-critical, but also has a little bit of distance with herself, and is receptive to someone being lost, because she's just had this experience with Angie where she had a transformation of her own and kind of was able to, after being knocked on her butt, kind of shook some things loose and find a path for herself. So, and then the fact that we sort of have this underlying theme of noticing or not noticing things, or a kind of awareness or awakening. So I thought it worked to pull that string with them, because I see Kelly just a few steps ahead of where Margaret is, and Kelly struck me as the kind of character who would not only be kind but be willing to say, hey,
Yeah.
what's up? And of course Margaret's like, arr. So, because at this point she doesn't know what's real and what's not. But then one other thing came to mind as we were talking about each of us getting characters to interact with others, and it's this idea of keys fitting into locks. That's how it feels to me, is you have the character that is a whole pie, but there's one pie sliver missing, and you have another character who has that sliver. And so we're starting to get this feeling of who has something that someone else needs, and how do you bring that together so that it becomes a story driver. So I very much saw Kelly being the key to Margaret's lock.
Ah.
Wow. So eloquent. Yeah.
Different.
Yeah.
In the summary that you shared of the story, you shared it in our chat. You used the phrase about characters being beacons,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I love this idea of a character who got literally knocked on her ass, being a beacon for somebody who's been on her ass.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I asked the question in my summary about Kelly needing to go back to see Angie again, and it just made me wonder, they had this really profound connection that sort of got her thinking down this path. So is she giving her agency over to Angie? Is she like placing her faith in her now?
No, no,
Or
no, no, no.
right. Or is she wanting to further her progression toward her own destiny, which is what I thought, which again made her a good leader to be a few steps ahead for somebody that was trying to make that same kind of journey. So yeah.
Yeah, Kelly is I haven't worked out the details, but she's going back to Angie for some more of that calming inspiration that she received from her. She's it's not, and Angie is wise enough to know that it's not her place to give Kelly definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the thing that she needs, that she wants to do and can do and feels comfortable doing, is to guide Kelly in ways that allows Kelly to make her own definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To step out one step at a time, and know why she's going in the direction that she's going from her own mind, not from somebody else's. You know, she's using nobody's dictionary but her own. So
We have a castmate who has an appointment.
oh yeah.
So I think we should say adieu to our castmate, but then keep on going.
Okay.
Sounds
Because we
good.
got, yeah,
See you, Mel.
I'll see you.
Have a great meeting.
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, what I see with happening just from the outside looking in, based on the discussion, Victoria and Deb, the things you've been saying back and forth, we see Kelly, who got, you know, like you say, is a few steps down the road from Margaret, but she is seeking someone who has it more together than she does, who helped her. But she's also balanced between someone who doesn't have it as well together as she is, because she got knocked down and got right back up. So she has two bumpers on her lane. The bumper of where she doesn't want to go, and the bumper of someone who's helped her so far. And don't we often sometimes cement what we've learned by sharing it with others?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a one of the key tenets for who was that? The physicist Feynman talked about, you know, if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, then you don't understand it well enough yourself. You know, not a 5-year-old, but a fifth grader. I'm sorry, a fifth grader. And so the idea, though, is that when you teach somebody what you've just learned, you find your own gaps. The things that you thought you understood, but actually you don't. So it's a great self-check mechanism, teaching somebody else. You know.
And on the emotional level as well as on the understanding level. Okay. Well, then it remains for me to summarize. The Bast makes the belt, and Teresita, having just had an evening where she understands, doesn't have the word for it yet, but understands the difference between viewing a video and having a conversation, and has longed deeply for a conversation, now gets to have what our readers might think, and I at first thought was her first conversation, but Mel pointed out that she'd already had a conversation with Rosemary in the link. But this is her first face-to-face conversation with another human being. And Todd makes a marvelous ambassador. Not only are they pretty close to the same emotional level at this moment, although Teresita is maturing rapidly and he's a certain age, but he's got a lot of patience. I originally wrote it giving more of what was going on in Todd's head, but that's head hopping. The story is told from Teresita's point of view. So I had to rewrite it, taking the head hopping out. But my expectation is that Todd's got it better than she's got it. When she kept she kept saying yes, he goes beyond and tries something else. And when he says, I saw you, and she can't accept it because Jinx hit her, he lets it go and goes on to something else. So he's got a lot of maturity for a kid his age.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty impressive fellow. That's my summary.
Well, one of the things that is a vision for me is just, it's not like pretty impressive children are a dime a dozen, but this is a place where you might be impressed by literally all of the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, look at the population that they come from.
Yeah, you look at the population and they prize curiosity.
Yeah.
And, a lot of things fall into place from there. So, you know,
Mm.
I think it reads really fine. I mean, of course, you had shared your early head hopping thing, and I do that all the time. I don't know. I do head hopping in my first draft, and then
Mhm.
I decide, okay, who knows what, and a lot of times it works out great. It's like, however he came to that, it was the right
Mhm.
decision.
Mhm. Well, I think thank you so much for participating in this opportunity to go from summary to expansion, because after all, that is the other side of summary. We read, we take in, we summarize, we think about what we've learned, and then we expand again. So this is the other dimension. If we think of like a pair of butterfly wings, the summary is the join between the two wings, the wings of what we learned and the wings of what we do with it. And there's that summary, is that crucial center down the middle that captures what was learned and launches what is to be. I in the middle of reading a book by a gentleman whose name I will butcher, Servais Pencaris, and he talks about definition being the starting point for logic. Logic begins with a definition and deduces, and it's the end point of observation. Observation draws and then defines. And so, in that respect, and summary is a definition is very much a summary of a field or of a term. So, a definition and summary are very, very much linked. And he didn't choose butterfly; he chose an airport as his image. For some, you're landing with a definition, and others you're taking off from a definition.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So now, because I'm leading, I have to prompt myself. Kathleen, where can people find us? Oh, let me tell you. You could come over to LiLLiPub.org. It's where we hang out when we're not in YouTube land. And oh my gosh, do we ever have a lot of fun over there? You can join the Roanoke group. You'll get a link to all of our fun stuff. And in fact, if you visit LiLLiPub.org, you can sign up to be an email viewer, even if you don't want to go all the way to joining LiLLiPub. But why wouldn't you? It's only $8 a month and you can participate. See you over there.
Yes.
Bye.
Goodbye.